Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Arsenal win 5-1, but more importantly, I've checked the XG, and we are allowed to be happy about this result. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right, not only did we get another win, a 9th win in a row in all competitions, but according to the stats experts, we are allowed to celebrate this one. So there you go, pop the corks, open the champagne. You've been holding it for 9 games. You haven't been celebrating any of these wins. You've been complaining about the performances. I haven't. I've been celebrating them all, but you have, and now you can celebrate. And here to celebrate with me is Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stilberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Hello there indeed. And Clive is on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello, hello.
Paul couldn't be here, but what he's going to do is he's going to record 5 minutes of his thoughts on the match, which I assume will just be sex noises and lewd jokes, and I'm going to pop that into the podcast at some point if I remember. If I don't remember, it'll just be an outtake on Patreon or something like that. Speaking of Patreon, I strongly recommend you sign up for it because Tim's video previews are extraordinary. Laszlo's graphics are awesome, so you will definitely love that. And then, in addition, we have In the Spotlight, Mesut Ozil, coming later this week. You don't want to miss that. We have a special guest coming on. There's going to be all kinds of good things over there. If you've already signed up, thank you. If you have not signed up and would like to, thank you. And if you don't want to sign up, thank you just for being here listening to us. Either way, we love you and we appreciate you. So, with all that out of the way, 5-1 to Arsenal. I mean, look, I predicted this, not to pat myself on the back, but my knowledge is unrivaled and she'll never be challenged. But I have to admit, I did a good thing, Clive. You'd be proud of me. I because of work, I overslept this kickoff. And as a result, I did not have to go on a feverish Twitter tweet deleting spree based on what I'm sure would have been my reaction to the lineup. Now I can just come on here and say, I was thrilled with the lineup and thought every selection made sense. However, I'm sure you had problems with the lineup. Tell me what you thought of that bizarre lineup.
I didn't have any problems with it.
Sure you did. Come up with some.
I didn't have. I must admit, I did not see this game directly. I was training my own team, and so I saw the lineup come through and was thinking about other things. But I thought, what's happened to Ozil? Okay, I didn't see that coming. I thought the team would be quite similar.
He had a falling out with Gunnersaurus at the training ground.
Yeah. But then I saw Iwobi and Mkhitaryan playing, and I looked at it, and the first thing that it looked like to me was this was quite a hard-working lineup, right? So I didn't think the formation would be 4-4-2 or 4-2-2, depending on how you see it. But I was pleased to see a harder working team on the pitch, and I think that's what I'd like to see a lot more away from home. I think. A lot of times when we play these sort of mid to lower teams, the only way they can match us is by outworking us. So if we're outworking them, then our quality is going to come through. So don't give them an in. Don't give them anybody who's weak. Don't give them anybody that's weak positionally. Don't give them any indiscipline. Make them work for their moments as much as you can. And they'll realise that when they have the ball, we'll have the ability to take it off them in areas they're not expecting, and we're going to make them work. And I think that's how we overcame them in this game. So I think from a lineup perspective, I was okay with it. I suppose Socrates, I was expecting him to start. I'm not sure why he didn't start. But Mustafi came in fresh and did okay. So yeah, I was okay there, but I've moved past this go mad at the lineup situation now, because I have this little theory about Emery. I think he's a video king, and he learns, right? And the more data you have, the better your data-driven decisions will be. And if he's somebody that learns some data and learns some analysis, he's going to automatically think that other people are going to learn from him. So quick little rotations just to keep the opposition guessing, so we can offer them different problems, I think is part of his MO. And so I'm not going to get worried about lineups at the moment. I think how we play is a little bit more important.
Oh, of course. I couldn't agree with you more. And I just think this was totally unexpected. I mean, the irony, Tim, is this is a coach who has been shoehorning in all our big-name stars to get them all on the pitch, despite the dysfunction that has accompanied it. And here, he bypassed several of them. He overlooked Aubameyang. He overlooked Ozil. Well, Ozil was injured. He overlooked Ramsey. Mustafi, who had certainly been the bigger name and certainly the better performing center back. I mean, there were a lot of names he looked past to get this lineup on the pitch. I want to dive into the formation and what you thought of it, but just really, really quickly, do you have any specific reaction to any of those choices? I mean, what choice of the ones he made really confounded you at the time that you saw it?
None of them really. To be honest, I was quite pleased with the lineup because I think that I've thought for a long time that Welbeck and Lacazette are a really, really good partnership. We talk a lot about Aubameyang and Lacazette being a good partnership because they're mates. But I've always thought that Welbeck and Lacazette are a really, really good complementary front two.
You have mentioned it before, yes.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be like a bit of a 4-4-2. But what I was thinking was that this was quite similar, a quite similar construct to the team that played at Chelsea, where we had Iwobi and Mkhitaryan kind of in those half spaces, not quite wide. And of course we had Aubameyang up front that day, but this time we had Lacazette. And I think that's a really good like counter-attacking front three. They're, like Clive said, they're very, very hard-working, which again away from home I think is really good. But to me it was just I think Iwobi and Mkhitaryan and Lacazette actually. I think that front three that he picked, the front four he picked, are the four players who I think so far have been able to adapt the best to Emery's methods a little bit. I think Iwobi and Mkhitaryan are both ideal to play in that kind of half space where they're not quite wingers, but at the same time they're not always just looking to run into the middle of the pitch. I've long thought that Welbeck would do all right under Emery, given that kind of, because Welbeck's had that problem that he's never quite been a winger and never quite been a striker, and Emery's system doesn't ask him to be either, which I think suits him. I think it's the same for Iwobi. He's not really a winger, he's not really a number 10, so playing in an in-between role really suits him as well. And Lacazette's taken to life very well as well because of how hard he works from the front. And I just, I think that was quite a nice counter-attacking kind of front three. I really liked it. I was slightly surprised Socrates didn't play. But other than that, I'm not saying this is what I thought he would do, but I had absolutely no issue with it. I thought it was a good lineup. I thought it looked balanced.
So let me ask you this. Did you see it as a 4-4-2? I saw a lot of people calling it a 4-4-2. To me, it was a clear 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 out of possession. That much was clear.
Yep.
But in possession, I still saw shades of a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-2-2-2, depending on the position Mkhitaryan took up. There were times when he'd take up a central position almost like the 10, and Danny was wide, Iwobi was wide, and Lacazette was up front. And then there were times when it was 2-2-2. I mean, is that how you saw it, or did you see it as a true 4-4-2?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I was fairly kind of high up where I was sat, so I had a good kind of idea of the shape, and it was exactly what I was talking about. The people I was sitting with, when we didn't have the ball, it's 4-4-2, and Welbeck, Welbeck kind of had a free roll out when we didn't have possession because he's a good presser. But when we had possession, then it was Mkhitaryan who had the free roll. So it's quite an interesting setup. But I thought it was excellent. I thought it was one that worked really, really well, and throughout the game as well, not just in the second half. I thought we were decent in the first half as well.
Yeah, and I just want to read out some stats here that I think are really relevant. So we talk about and have talked about a lot the importance of engaging those wide positions, and it seems that what Emery wants to do to create chances is get into those deep half spaces and get cutbacks and pullbacks from the byline in the half space, in the channels, and we haven't been doing that when Ramsey and Ozil have started. We did it a lot today, and so based on Scott's statistics that you can find at the Arsblog by the Numbers article, which I definitely recommend you read, interestingly, Mkhitaryan and Iwobi were 1 and 2 in his offensive value-added statistics. 3 shots for Mkhitaryan led Arsenal, 5 touches in the box for Mkhitaryan, second on Arsenal, 7 touches in the box for Iwobi, led Arsenal, 4 passes completed in the box by Iwobi, led Arsenal, and then 20 final third touches for Mkhitaryan and 19 for Iwobi, first and third on Arsenal. So, any way you look at it, those two players were super influential in everything we did in the final third. Now, that's not rocket surgery or brain science, because obviously, they are part of the forward line, but we definitely were effective in those spaces that we have not been as effective in when Ozil and Ramsey have started. And one thing that we've been tracking a lot is the involvement of Bellerin in particular. And I think this is so interesting because in the Watford game just prior, Ozil completed 1 pass to Bellerin and received 4 from him. In this game, Mkhitaryan and Bellerin exchanged 12 passes together, 6 to and 6 from. And you just saw the difference it made. We got goals from those wide positions, overlaps. Nacho created 1. Bellerin created 1. Bellerin nearly scored 1. So I think it is clear, Clive, that we need those positions to be involved. We need those players to be integrated into the attack to create the kinds of chances that Emery Ball, this nascent developing Emery Ball, wants to create. So for you, I mean, how was that the story of the match, getting these positions back involved? And is this something that we have to ensure that we continue with?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the average position map, and you're starting to see partnerships develop, right? So you got Iwobi and Welbeck developing, and Mkhitaryan and Lacazette developing. And when you're a fullback and you look ahead and you see a partnership, you think, I can get involved in that, excuse me, and create an overload. And that's what was happening. So Bellerin got close to Mkhitaryan and Lacazette, and the strikers flipped sides on occasion. And when Aubameyang came on, I thought he had a good right-sided bias. I really feel that to have these wide men played with Iwobi and Mkhitaryan, they are far more disciplined, far more team thought first, and they look to create partnerships. What you have with Ozil and Ramsey is they look to create space for themselves and invade space. Ozil tries to create partnerships from a central area, but he uses the right as his starting position, and he's looking to create chances. And Ramsey's looking to get off the ball and to get into areas where he can finish chances. What we don't have with those two players consistently, and I don't want to be critical on a day when we've had one of the top performances in many a month. What we don't have with those two guys is consistent partnerships. I'm afraid it's a little bit more harder to play with because they're unpredictable in their movements and they're far more instinctive in their movements. And for me, it's quite interesting that those two players didn't start the game and we had a balanced, normal football team. The name on the back of the shirts may not be the one that the kids are buying, but what they were doing on the pitch was exactly what's required. Hard working, can play outside and in, they can cross, they can drive inside, they can travel, those two players, comfortably with the ball. We can't be sure of their end products just yet, but what we see is a team with normal work ethic, a bit more pragmatism, which I think is absolutely spot on for a game 3 days after going to Karabag, when you need hard work, you need to match their energy. And I thought he selected them very, very well. And I think every statistic will tell us this was probably one of the most balanced teams we've had this season, if not the most.
Yeah, and every player played a role. I mean, I can't remember which goal it was. It may have even been the first or the second. I have no memory for memories. But Danny Welbeck won an important header and got it down to Lacazette, and that play developed into a goal. And I think, we haven't necessarily had that aerial presence, and Welbeck gave us the ability to win the long ball out from Leno, the ability to win the first ball, and second balls can be so dangerous, but we haven't had the guy out there winning those balls, and he did that. So everybody played a role. One player who I think has to come in for praise, and if I don't do it soon, we'll lose sight of it as we start to get into the goals, and certainly the discussion of that phenomenal third goal. But Tim, it's Lucas Torreira, and got off to a slow start in his Arsenal career simply because he wasn't used. Made some impact in second halves. Has been good, but I thought in this game we saw the full range of the possibilities with this guy in our midfield, and he was everywhere. And his ability to know when to step up and intercept and when to drop back and fill a passing lane, to keep the ball ticking over, to keep the ball moving. I just was so impressed with this performance. Is this the first little glimmer? And again, we always caveat things based on quality of the opposition, but we've seen us come up short against far worse opposition in the past. So I don't think there's any need to caveat this. This for me was just a 10 out of 10 performance from a player who is going to be the linchpin of our midfield for many, many years, hopefully.
Yeah, he was absolutely superb, and I was thinking about the way the supporters were reacting and kind of interacting with the team throughout this game, and it was lovely actually. A load of us kind of went out afterwards, and we were saying, and it wasn't just because we played well and won. We were saying like that was fun again, like. The fans were really interacting with the players. We were singing players' names again, which like completely tailed off last season. And of course, because I was thinking about the front three, and when Clive was talking about the names on the shirts, I tell you, nobody had a problem with what Iwobi, Welbeck, and Lacazette were doing. Their contribution was immensely popular throughout the game, but nobody's contribution was more popular than Torreira's, which. When you win 5-1 and he doesn't score one of the goals, I think that kind of tells you something. And I know, look, particularly British football fans, we look for hard work, we look for industry, which is probably why what that front three did yesterday resonated quite a lot, because they didn't see any walking, they didn't see any hands on hips, they didn't see any gesticulating and eyes to the heavens and all of that.
And no let up, by the way. I mean, we have been guilty of playing with our food after taking a lead against lesser teams, and there was no sign of that.
Yeah, exactly. And how wonderful was it then to bring on Ramsey and Aubameyang against a tiring team who are chasing the game? Absolutely ideal. But with Torreira, I just saw the headline of an article by someone called Will McGee, and unfortunately I've not had a chance to read it yet, but the headline really grabbed me. Where he was saying we've had this Vieira obsession for so many years, and that maybe Torreira, that this is the first time that we're accepting that we're not going to get another Patrick Vieira because it doesn't exist, and that actually what we've got here is a slightly different type of midfielder, and because we've probably been short in this area one way or another for quite a long time, what do? You go back to the old favourites. You think, oh, we need Vieira, we need Gilberto, and those players, they're not ten a penny. But also, kind of the style of this midfielder, I think, has changed. You look at Torreira's build, his style. It's very similar to someone like Kante, for example, just that kind of all energy. But he reads the game so well, and he was just like snapping into those interceptions, and it's just I think everyone was so excited about this signing, even though we didn't know much about Torreira and most of us hadn't seen him, just from what we'd read. And I think everyone had this light bulb. This, yes, that's what we need. We need that, someone who's got the urgency of a Coquelin or a Flamini to win the ball back, but can actually use it when they get it as well. And I thought he was fantastic. And where he's like quite short and stocky, he's got a really low centre of gravity. It's really hard to get him off the ball. Quite a lot of the time, he looks like he's about to trip over his own feet. In fact, he almost constantly looks like he's about to fall over, but doesn't quite. Which is, ask Theo Walcott. That can be a very neat trick if you can pull it off often enough. But I don't know if you've ever heard of these toys that were very popular in England in about the 60s. They were called Weebles.
Is that the thing that vibrates and you put it down your pants?
No.
Those.
I know what you mean.
I guess
I'll
not
DM
then.
you about those later. But no, Weebles. They're like basically. I think the tagline was they weeble and they wobble and they
won't
never
fall down. Yep.
Because it's like got a rounded.
We called them Weeble
bottom,
wobbles, so we just added a
we
word onto the end of Weeble.
Yeah. So he's almost like a Weeble. You look like you've knocked him off the board, and he looks like he's stumbling to the floor. But he, almost like Cazorla, I guess. But he finds a way to stay up and get away from you. And yeah, I mean, it's early days, obviously, but he just looks like what we all kind of thought and hoped he would be, which was something that's been missing from our midfield for a while. And I thought Xhaka played really well as well, because he was able to concentrate on what he's good at.
Yeah.
But can I got to say something here.
I would love to. All I was going to say is I think nothing highlights the distinction in the brands between us and the Arscast is that the Arscast is talking about the SodaStream generation and we're talking about indestructible sex toys. It's really just take your pick of a past generational consumer products. But yeah, go ahead, Clive. I had to get that in, but now that I have, please tell me what you had to say.
No, I just think we've spoken about this holding midfielder for many years, right? And then we've sort of we've made ourselves happy with certain combinations, and they haven't really lasted. And last season, number one combination was Xhaka and Ramsey. It has been for a couple of years now, and we've known it's not quite right, but we still praised it to the high heavens when it worked. And for me, what's really good about Torreira and Xhaka is they both want to be in that central area. They want to be there. They want to control it. They control it in a different way, but their primary psychology is, I am a midfield controller. One will control by hard work and passing and range of pass, and one will control by working hard, covering space, sprinting to the ball, winning races to create transitions, to give it to somebody else who can then flow the game. And that, to me, what I love about those two is they are proper central midfielders, and it's great to see that middle area controlled by an Arsenal team, which means then they become the conduit to all the two further up in Mkhitaryan and Iwobi, or the two in the wide areas, or the two strikers. But the way they control the game is exactly what's been missing for about 5 years now. I think we saw a patch of it with Coquelin and Cazorla. I think we had a similar partnership, but it wasn't as rounded as what we're seeing with these two guys. And so I think it's about re-educating Arsenal fans of what essential midfield is all about. You've got to win your races. You've got to compete. You've got to get to the pitch of the ball first. You've got to read the game, play off people's touches, and move it quickly. And everything about our team is being set by those two. Everything is 1 and 2 touch. Everything is direct. We are playing forward and not square. And they are driving this. Those two are driving it. We accelerate the game. We follow our passes. And I think it's so important that we recognise this as the criteria for what an Arsenal midfield should look like. And we need to now create a layer beneath them that do similar things so we don't have that single point of failure.
Yeah, no, it's well said. Look, 8 ball recoveries, but 50 passes at 84%. I mean, he does some of the things that Coquelin did, but I just think in terms of his ability on the ball, it's a totally different story. And, one thing that's nice to see, he did get kicked a bit. He did get some sore ones in there, and he got right back up and was able to carry on. And, one thing that I will say is that if you're going to play that role in the Premier League, you've got to be able to take a few kickings. We've had some fragile players that break down and have not been available for us, and he looks like someone, and I have just ruined it, and I'm sorry, everybody, who looks like he will hold up. Clive, I'll stay with you just for a second, though. Let's go down narrative street just for a second. I think when Lacazette was picked in this game and Welbeck was, and Aubameyang was left on the bench, there was part of me that's thinking, well, maybe he just didn't quite recover from the illness in midweek. There's another part of me thinking, oh, great, here we go. We're really going to start to create a problem with Aubameyang in the squad, aren't we? And Lacazette scores a goal, and what does he do? He runs right to the touchline to hug Aubameyang, and Aubameyang looked happier for him than he would have been for his own goal. How special and important is it in your mind that these players have this rapport with one another in a situation where at other clubs we might see it be more of a rivalry?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, actually. We can all think back in the history of the game and think about these partnerships, just have that special chemistry. You can spot this one really quickly, really early, from probably last season when I think Aubameyang gave Lacazette the penalty. I thought, that's interesting. And you start to see things online, and then obviously this season there's been a greater transparency with the online work and the media work, and we can see what's actually happening. To me, I think it's crucial. Many a partnership out there. I remember I live in the Luton area, and there was a partnership between Brian Steele and Paul Walsh. As soon as you saw them, you could see that them two were born to play with each other. It goes way, way back to Toshak and Keegan and York and Cole.
Paul.
You and Paul. You don't get these things very often, and when you see it, you got to invest in it. And I never thought Emery would leave one of them on the bench. Why would you when you're trying to establish yourself? But actually, they're almost dictating how we play. And I think what's historically happened is that players like potentially Xhaka, Ozil and Ramsey in recent years, because of their unique style and because of their plus points and their weaknesses, they've actually driven how we play. But now we're seeing players with extreme output that are scoring goals actually dictating the shape of our team and how we support them. And I think it's brilliant. I think it suits the Emery sort of culture and mindset. I want players that are malleable to what we want to achieve on the day. And maybe the players that force you to change certain aspects without the output at the top end of the pitch, I think those players are going to find it harder to sustain their place in the longer to medium term view. And it's going to be so interesting to see how he develops his thought process around selection and what is a success for an Arsenal player. And at the moment, he's keeping us all guessing, because none of us thought Welbeck was going to start this game. When he did, we thought, okay, you played a big part in the Carabao game, but it's like a classic. I'm putting you in. You must have done something right. You've earned your start. There you go. And it seems like the whole squad has appreciated that. They understand the selection criteria, and we look like a very strong group. So it is really pleasing to watch.
It's tough, too, because these kinds of interpretations and analysis can be so heavily weighed by result, being wise after the fact. And what I mean is, getting all these wins in a row and using so many different players and so many different lineups, it looks like just masterstroke squad management, keeping everybody happy and involved and creating a meritocracy. If a couple of these results had gone the wrong way, we might be looking at it and saying, what's he trying to be so clever about? You know what I mean? But the fact is they have gone the right way, and he's managed it brilliantly. And at this point, every single player in that squad has to feel they have a chance to earn their way in and that they're going to play meaningful minutes. And that is really important in a long season filled with, hopefully, deep runs and a lot of competitions. Tim, the goals, really quickly, let's just touch on the Lacazette goals, those first two. The first one is a really nice move. Again, we get the overlap to Nacho from Iwobi, delivering it to him, and then the cutback is good. He one touch and then turns and swivels on it. Is that, Lacazette, in my mind, hadn't really done a whole lot up until that point, but he is just on fire right now. And I saw that our conversion rate is 25%. It seems totally unsustainable. It's by far the best in the league. Maybe just, give me a little bit of your thoughts on the form he's in and the goals he scored.
Yeah, it's just a player with confidence, isn't it? With the first goal, it's the touch. That it happened down the other end to me, but immediately, I saw the move developing. I thought, right, here's the cutback. You look up into the box and you think, oh, actually, Fulham we've got into a good position, but we haven't pulled them apart here. They've still got, 4 men, I think they had in the 18-yard area. So you think, okay, we've got ourselves in a good position, but we still got to work. This isn't, when City do it at the moment, City once they get the cut back, it's someone standing on the goal line with a tap in. This wasn't quite that. And it's just that first touch from Lacazette that completely sets it up. And actually, I've seen him make that similar kind of touch quite often, just maybe not quite that close to goal. I think that's one area he's really developed, and his kind of hold-up play is very, very good at, leaning into the defender, but doing it in a way that's not a foul. Where basically what he does, I spoke about this at the beginning of the season, he doesn't do much with his arms so that it doesn't look like he's shoving, so he doesn't get penalised. But what he does is he basically takes exaggerated steps backwards so that he basically gives the guy up his backside no recourse but to keep backing up, basically. It's a really clever form of backing in. But that first touch to give himself space, as soon as he makes that touch, you can see he's made himself a yard of space. And when your brain just fills in the gaps for you and you think, oh, I know what he's going to do now. And he's got that picture in his head, and you get it a few seconds later and you think, oh, yeah, that's clever. I see that. And then the second goal, again, that's just all about confidence. He's taken that really nice and early, taken the goalkeeper by surprise. It was very, very similar to a goal Alexis scored at Leicester a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah,
when he scored
I remember that.
Quick throw in.
Yeah, we beat them.
5-2 and there was that quick throw in and he just hits it straight away. And that's just when you're confident, when you think, yeah, okay, 25 yards out, no problem, I can take this on. And yeah, he's playing with a real spring in his step at the moment.
He's a very accurate shooter. Now, I don't know if that's always been the case. I can't pretend to have watched him forever, but when he gets into chances, into positions to shoot, they always seem to be on target. I very rarely see him miss the target. And obviously, once you do that, you give yourself a really good chance to score, get a rebound, and knock one in. So, also explains partly our conversion rate. The goal that they get, let's just touch on it quickly, and then we'll get to all the other fun stuff that happened. Clive, it's a Nacho Monreal heavy touch that he chases down, and because he's on the stretch trying to recover it, it's a bad pass out. Comes back in. Holding can't really decide whether to hold the line or drop in. It's a very tough position he's put in at that point. And Leno can't stop it, can't keep it out. It was annoying, but at that point, I still never felt panicked because it just seemed that we had another gear we could go up and that we were going to be able to break them down and get goals. But what's your take on the goal we did concede?
Yeah, it's a transition goal, right? It was simple. We split the pitch wide. We had decent possession, but it wasn't secure possession, and we are firing the ball into the midfield. And sometimes when you give it away short, you think, why do you overhit it and go into the channels? But that's very Sam Allardyce. So I don't want to see us do that all the time. So he just punched it and he got caught out. Quick transition. We couldn't close the spaces, and they put a little pass down the side. 2 passes, goal. Disappointed really because we were playing well. And 1-1 didn't really reflect, for me, the balance of the game. But I wasn't too traumatized. I think the thing that I saw in the first half, I was expecting us to be quite tired. And although we started a little bit steady, we progressively grew into the game. So I felt we had our legs. I felt the work ethic was good. It's just an error. And Fulham took their chance, and I'd rather give them a little bit of credit for the quick transition rather than slaughtering our spacing and our ability to recover, because it happens. If you're playing the game through the thirds, every now and again you're going to get caught. We were just a little bit open and we just got caught on that one. Can I just touch on Lacazette a little bit?
I knew I couldn't get that one past you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
he deserves it. Go for it. Fire away.
Well, I just think if you're looking at his style, he's a small man, but he almost plays like a big centre forward. I think he's very similar in some ways to how Harry Kane is playing and how Giroud plays up to a point. He does back in, he backs in tight, and what he does is he then creates a separation, and that's really clever. You create a separation to then do what you need to do, but if you do create a separation and then the defender will then panic to try to close that gap. If you've got good secure possession or good protection of the ball, you can buy fouls. I think that's a very smart thing he does. You get close, you bounce off him, create a yard of space, and then when a referee, what he'll see is the defender panicking to close that gap, and then you can pick up your fouls. I think he's a big man, little man. He is the big man in the partnership per se, and Aubameyang has the skill set of the little man. He's the one that, although he's bigger, he's the one that wants the free space, doesn't want contact, wants the space to run into, and he's the second receiver, if that makes sense. So I think what Lacazette has done for the team has given us a wonderful structure while the team is learning, and what we saw at the weekend was Lacazette do well, Aubameyang do well, Welbeck do well, Ramsey do well, everyone do well because of the partnerships that are appearing on the pitch.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to see, and I think the reality with Lacazette is that he looks right now like he could just pop up with a goal from anywhere at any time. And it's one of those situations where, when you play well like this, it's a joy. But when you're not playing well, someone who can just win the game with a goal from nothing is an invaluable weapon to have in your arsenal. And he's been that guy this season. So kudos to him. Let's do this. Let's take a break to get a word from Paul. We'll get 5 minutes of Paul's thoughts on the match since he can't make it to an official part of the podcast because we're not important enough to him. Hopefully he won't just repeat our bit about the whole sex toy thing from earlier. And then we'll tell you about a little bit of beer. And then when we come back, we're going to do an entire breakdown of that extraordinary third goal and what we thought of it. So we'll hear from Paul. We'll hear about some beer. And we'll come right back and talk about the third goal.
Torreira, yada-da-da, Torreira, yada-da-da. He comes from Uruguay. He's only 5'5", Torreira. Right, well, that game was a whole lot of fun. Fulham. I don't know what I was expecting from a lineup and from a formation, but it certainly wasn't that. I was basically floored by it. But I thought it was great, not just the performance. So in the last 3 matches we've played, we've used 3 completely different formations, which I love. 4-2-3-1, what was it, 3-4-3 or something in the Europa League, 3 at the back. And now we've gone with a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2 or whatever the lads are calling it these days. And I loved it. And then the personnel. I think it's bloody great that we can send out a significantly changed team in 3 different games. And, missing a few stars in the front 4. We kind of talked about needing to break that apart and put in people who fit the position versus the other way around. Ideally, our stars are the people who fit the positions, and Emery's clearly tinkering. He's doing trial and error. He's like Edison, designing the first light bulb. 10,000 efforts, 10,000 trials, 9,990 of them are a failure, and then finally the final one works. 9,999. And this was really interesting. So, will we be 4-3-3 from here on in? Probably not. But the idea that we can switch between formations and use this on a regular basis will be very exciting. It's brilliant to see Welbeck and Iwobi, 2 of my pre-season or certainly early season picks for players that Emery would look back on the end of our first season and say, wow, they were better than expected. I think their legs, their athleticism, their own mini superpowers really came off in this game. Delighted that Mkhitaryan got a start. Don't know where he's been the last couple of games. It's a shame. And I would be tempted to ask how much of this good performance is a reflection of putting Mkhitaryan over to the right, even though much of our attack came down the left. But I think Mkhitaryan was a big piece of this. But I guess everybody had a great day today, or against Fulham. Talking about Torreira, it's ironic that a player who's basically sacrifices his own game to some extent, because the boy's got skills and he's got passes, but he leaves that to others most of the time, is the guy who has his own chant these days. So that's ironic or funny or something. But what was interesting about this game is I kind of commented the last couple of games he and Xhaka started, that Xhaka gets a platform to play on, and he still did in this game. But in other games, he was doing, certainly for key phases of the game, he'd be doing 22% of our outfield passes, or maybe a little less, but something around the 20% mark as the game averaged out. And in this one, that wasn't the case at all. He certainly had more passes than Torreira, who, as always, hands the ball off for others to shine, wins the ball back, forces the turnover, preempts. We all saw some of that, which led to people singing the chant, which was lovely. But Xhaka's numbers for passing weren't significantly different to those for Monreal and the centre backs, and that's kind of intriguing to some degree. And across the team, everybody's numbers were up in comparison to Xhaka's. He was still the biggest passer, but it was by degree this time, as opposed to 50% more than anybody else or something significant like that. And I think that speaks to a much more balanced team and a much healthier approach. And so this looked much closer to what we're looking for. This won't be the only option of how we play, of course, but I think we all took a lot of hope from this, and I liked the balance in it. And I loved what we did with the Welbeck partnering with Lacazette, but I'm sure that was covered plenty during the rest of the pod. So I'll pick on a couple of other guys. Monreal is an interesting player. We've talked about him in various forms. Is he losing a little pace? He's certainly a bit susceptible to facing up against a pacey winger. Has he lost a little pace as he gets older? Indubitably. But he's still pretty fast. And what particularly impressed me, and we saw this in this game, is his travel, getting up and down that wing. He's always had a good burst, that first initial move. He kind of crouches down and springs forward. But getting up and down the pitch, we've seen it in a few goals recently, and we saw it in this match. It's his wing. He often provides the technical platform with the passing alongside with Xhaka. But getting up and down the wing, he's quite remarkable, really. He stays really fit and he really travels at a good pace. He's maybe not the paciest player around, but I would think if you averaged out the running he does and the speed he goes at, he's pretty damn useful. So he definitely caught my eye. I'm sure lots of other players were identified through this, so I won't go through them all, but Nacho is a player I really want to make sure kind of gets the plaudits after a game like this, and so much of our attacking comes up that side, and we identified Xhaka and Ozil, not in this game, as being key reasons that might be the case, but Monreal just gives such a good base, and on the other hand you have the contrast from Bellerin zipping up and down the wing. Delighted with Ramsey and Ramsey's goal, and as I mentioned on Twitter today, I think resolution to the Ramsey situation is a long way off. It's basically dead, but that doesn't mean it can't be resurrected. I think the key ingredient to things getting fixed with Ramsey is the same on all sides, which is Emery finding a system that works for the team, and then Ramsey being able to shine in it, not just being able to contribute. I don't think that's enough to keep him around, playing on right wing or some fudge, or just been one of the boys. I don't think it's going to quite do it for him. But if he were to shine in this 4-2-2 system, and if that's what we majorly focused on, and he was a right mid or whatever in it, and not just did a good job, but really excelled, then I think you have a solution to everybody's problems. He wants to be paid a lot of money, but you can't pay him a lot of money if he's not one of the stars, if he's not really excelling, if it isn't using all of his superpowers. And from his side, if we need some flexibility on the money side, so he's not just saying, show me the money, I think that was in a movie somewhere, then he has to see that it's good for him, that he's excelling, that he's showcasing himself. And then there may be flexibility on all sides, flexibility from the club to reach out to him and say, you're a key piece of our strategy going forward. And they can't say that at the moment. We know that. You just know it's true. You can't look him in the eye and say, you're essential to what we do. You can only say, you're one of the guys who could be important to us going forward. So I think there's hope. I think it can be resurrected even if it doesn't feel like it can. But first things first, find a system that works for Emery, the Edison analogy. Break a few more light bulbs, but find 2 or 3 formations and a cadre of players that can play within those, and they're beginning to identify themselves. And then have Ramsey step up and show what he can do. Find one of those spots that he can really play in, and not just be as good as a Mkhitaryan or an Iwobi at it, but really excel. And then you have the rationale to spend the extra money on him, because if he's just good, like somebody else could be good, you don't throw that kind of money at him, at a player at that age. So I think there's hope, but we've still got a ways to go. Anyway, that was tremendously good fun. Enjoyed the snot out of it. And up the Arsenal. Liverpool is T-3, I guess you could say, in terms of Premier League games. So maybe this has come just in time and we can start getting our profile sorted, and a scenario where we might actually be able to give them a half-decent game. So that's it for me.
But right now, it's time to tell you about our favorite monthly craft beer discovery club. In fact, it is the world's most popular craft beer discovery club, beer52.com. You're going to want to go to beer52.com/vision right now. The reason you're going to want to do that is you're going to get a free case of craft beer. free. A free case of craft beer. You're even going to get a copy of Ferment magazine and a snack. So you're getting all of that for free. Just pay £2.95 shipping, and you'll be upgraded to free next day shipping, which is great. 8 incredible craft beers, a magazine, a snack, no-brainer. And I know all about no-brainers. Trust me, I have no brain. In any event, this is a chance for you to discover some of the best beers from around the world, and right now you get to take advantage of the Raise the Bar competition. Beer 52's search for the UK's best new small brewers in partnership with the London Craft Beer Festival. So you'll enjoy the likes of Unity's 7% Export Stout, Boxcar's Belgian IPA, and West by Three's Mothership with Passion Fruit. It's only available in the UK, which makes me very sad, but if you live in the UK, it should make you very happy, because by going to beer52.com/vision, not only do you make us happy podcasters, but you make yourself a happy owner of free craft beer. And so that is obvious. By the way, one thing we love about beer52.com, they have a 5-star rating on Trustpilot, so you know you are going with a very trustworthy company. Again, the most popular monthly craft beer delivery service, so take advantage of it. beer52.com/vision. Go there right now. Get your free case of craft beer. You're going to love it. Okay, we're back. So hopefully you are on the train to Beer 52 Town. Next destination is a case of free beer for you. Hopefully you're getting that. And hopefully you enjoyed Paul's thoughts on the match. I know I did. So now let's talk about the third goal, because it deserves its own little section. Tim, this was something special. This is a move that involves not just great flowing buildup throughout the team, but individual pieces of flair at every level. The chip ball at the start of the move, the 2 headers from Ramsey, the swivel and overlapping through ball to Aubameyang, the back flick finish. I left out Bellerin's back-heeled pass to Ramsey. I mean, all of it is sensational. Walk me through it move by move by move, and your reaction in the stadium as it was developing.
I have to be honest, I didn't really realise everything that precipitated the finish. When it actually happened, I saw the finish really, really clearly, and it was down our end, and I thought, oh wow, what a finish that is. And because I have such poor short-term memory, it wasn't until after the game that I associated the move with the goal. I forgot that they were part of the same move, basically. So yeah, actually, my reaction.
So I should have thrown this question to Clive, is what you're basically telling me. Have you at least watched it since, and can you opine on it now?
Yes, I've watched it many times since,
Great.
At the time, I didn't respond probably as effusively as I should have, because I was all about, oh, that's a nice finish. But yeah, it was a superb goal, and you know, we scored one fairly similar to that at Stamford Bridge. And it's clear, and of course, one against, was it Brentford?
It's funny because I can remember flowing moves that were impressive. I don't know that I can remember a flowing move that had this many different players doing this many tricks and flicks and individual movements.
Yeah, this one was a step up, but we have seen those kind of playing out from the back, you know, quick move kind of goals, and you know, I think it's becoming quite clear that this is. You know, sometimes when we'd score a goal and it would be like, oh, that's a very Wenger goal to score. I think we're getting an idea for what an Emery goal is.
What's the difference? Can you articulate that? Because for me, it's Wenger ball was the intricacy happened in the opposition final third, and Emery ball, I think the intricacy happens in the defensive final third, and then it's directness from there.
Yeah, definitely. And also Arsenal kind of... Under Wenger, I suppose it's more. I think it's more instinctive, maybe under Wenger, and that's why you saw some of like the tiki-taka goals, where you know that's not actually a move in and of itself that's been devised on the training ground. It's just they do those amazing passing drills where they just wallop the ball at each other and they all control it. And
so it's all intuition and technique,
Yeah, exactly. It's not like that Wilshere goal against Norwich, for example. I don't think that was devised as a route to goal. That was just born of, like you say, the practicing and honing that technique. Whereas I think this kind of back to front thing is something that's honed a little bit more.
Choreography.
And where, yeah, exactly. And where with Wenger, it was because it was based on player intuition. It almost went like, I think, for example, the Invincibles at their best. It's like an old dance step or something, slow, quick, slow, just changing the tempo every now and then. So 1 minute they're just knocking the ball around in midfield, and then or like Pep's Barcelona were obviously the masters at this kind of, tap side to side, side to side. Right, there's a space, bang, and that's it. It's gone, and 2 passes later, they're in on goal. And whereas this is much more brick by brick, I think.
Yeah, and it was brick by brick, but each brick was like adorned with whatever you put on bricks that makes them look special. I have to admit to not being a bricklaying expert, so we'll have to bring in a bricklaying expert on the next episode to tell me what makes a brick fancy. But each brick was very fancy. Clive, I want to get your take on the goal, and I guess the first and obvious question is: was it ruined for you by virtue of the fact that Ramsey scored it?
Yeah, a little bit, but apart from that,
I'm kidding. No, I mean, so many pieces of this to love. I mean, Bellerin's role in it is extraordinary. Ramsey, obviously, both in the middle of the park and on the end of it. What stood out to you?
What we're doing is we're playing what we're seeing. And that's the difference. Sometimes I felt watching Arsenal looking down, you could see movement, you could see runs, and we would turn away from it to wait for the next movement, the next run, and we'll just keep the ball moving. But now we're playing what we're seeing. There's a desperation to get it to the nearest forward man. There's an overlap, and we're not ignoring it. We're taking it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing the repeats of these type of goals. Like the Welbeck goal just the other week, midweek, I think it was Brentford. It's a similar type goal. Punch, pass, overlap, cross, goal. You know, it's just like we done it at Chelsea, missed the chances at Chelsea. So what we're doing, we're just playing what we see. And that means he's changing how we play. And he's making us more direct and direct in a good way. And I've yearned for this for years. The amount of, even last season when Lacazette first came, do you remember the theory of he was making runs and no one was passing to him? He was making these curved runs down the side, and he had his arms up in the air saying, "Give me the ball, give me the ball." And it was obvious to see that we just didn't know how to use him. This year, it looks like the players have been told, get it in there, get it down the side, get it to his player, and run off him. And it's a little bit more pattern play. And I wouldn't say choreograph, but there's a pattern to how we play. And I think we're doing it more and more. It's not becoming an accident anymore. Whereas in previous times, the pattern was driven by individual excellence of the highest order that was very driven by the emotion of the team on that day, which is not something that's going to make us a consistent league challenging team. It made us a cup team. And what we're seeing with Emery is something that's sustainable and repeatable that potentially can lead us, when we up the quality, to be a league-based team again. And if you keep having consistency of results, the cups will take care of themselves. So for me, that's what I liked about the goal. And I just like the energy and enthusiasm to make the next pass happen and not be the one where it broke down on. And to be fair to Ramsey, he was desperate to get that ball out wide because he knew he can get into the box, and he made sure that header that he got there, and then it could go out, and he knew he was favourite in the box. And once he gets into those areas, he's pretty decent.
I mean, that finish is sublime. And by the way, Aubameyang, from a wide position where we've been critical of his involvement, puts the ball, it might be the only guy who could get on the end of that Mkhitaryan through ball, because, I mean, he hits it with pace.
I thought it was over here. It's over here a little bit, wasn't it?
Aubameyang just covers so much distance in such a short period of time. And then the finish is perfect. I mean, it really is great. Tim, I'm going to invite Buzz Killington onto the podcast momentarily. So, Buzz, you take over for the next second. Why, thank you. Hi, I'm Buzz Killington. Look, we don't have to do a deep dive on this. Just my initial reaction was like, what the fuck are you on about? And then I was like, you know what? If that's what moves you and you're in the ground and that's what you want to chant, good. But I did not understand the "we've got our Arsenal back" thing. I'm not. I mean, I know my name is Buzz Killington, but I'm not trying to be a buzzkill. But just 2 seconds, can you just kind of give me your feeling on that? And I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you were not singing that one.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. It didn't greatly bother me because I think I know
weird.
where it was. Yeah, so I think I know where it was coming from in terms of, first of all, I don't, and again, this is just me overthinking and overanalyzing it. First of all, I don't really like personally, the insinuation that when they're not playing well, they're not yours anymore. They're not your Arsenal. It's like there's something else separate to me. But you're playing well again now. Now you're mine. You belong to me again. Again, I know that's overthinking it, but I don't really like that insinuation.
Also, just the weirdness of like an attractively scored goal being the thing that gets you Arsenal back. It's like the one thing that Arsene Wenger is identified with most strongly. Like if we had kept a clean sheet and you were singing "We've got our Arsenal back," I could understand.
Yeah, and so there was a perhaps unintended slight to Wenger there, but I think maybe to offer a little bit of mitigation, I guess. I said earlier, like this, it felt fun again, and not just when we were 5-1 up. Like even in the first half, there was away games became a bit of a chore last season because of the way the credit system is, with away tickets, people don't stop going. Had this been 30 years ago, there's no way any of our away games would be selling out. People would just go, well, I'm just not going to go anymore. And then when Wenger goes or whatever, I'll come back again. But you can't really do that with the away credit system, because once you stop going, you don't get back in. So what was happening was loads of people, they came to the games absolutely miserable and frustrated from the start, and it was a bit poisonous. And so I think maybe there was an element of, wow, it doesn't feel like that anymore. It doesn't feel
That's fair.
like
yeah, it's totally fair.
I'm not seeing like fights breaking out, and I'm not sitting next to a guy that like I just want to punch, and he probably wants to punch me as well. And
it's because I don't go to the away games.
Yeah, a lot of that needle had come out, but like again, I think the overriding sentiment was, we're not shit anymore, I guess.
No, and I get it. And like I said, my initial reaction was to kind of be bothered by it. And then my next reaction was, what do I care? We're having fun. The fans are having fun. They're chanting what's in their heart. Like, why legislate this stuff? Why litigate it? It doesn't really matter. So I don't want to make a big deal of it. And that's why I invited Buzz Killington to come on and do it. But he can go, thanks, Buzz. Well, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, he's gone now. So yeah, and not a big deal at all. Certainly just an extraordinary goal, an extraordinary moment. I think you see the fun. I remember Arsenal beating, was it Middlesbrough 7-0? And those were back in the days when Arsene Wenger's Arsenal team would get a bad team down and then step on their throat and hold them down and just keep punishing them. And that kind of went away for a while, and this really felt like that. We bring on Ramsey, we bring on Aubameyang, and just keep going at them. And obviously they didn't have an answer at any point for us. And once it got to 3-1, I think their resistance really faded badly, and then they were very, very open. Clive Aubameyang came on, and I thought he did brilliantly. He assists a goal, he scores two himself. The irony, of course, is the first goal he scores is kind of a mirror image in some ways of the one that Lacazette scores. That second one he scores, because it was the fifth and it was very, very late, and I think there wasn't a lot of attention on it, I think people lose sight of what a ridiculous finish that is. I mean, he's outside the box and he slots it home like it's a tap-in. It is such a luxury to have these two players. I mean, what did you think of his cameo in general?
Yeah, it's £100 million luxury, right? So they're not bargains we picked off of Sunday League pitch. These are top players, and the goals they scored, I mean, 2 or 3 of them, I couldn't see them coming. Do you know what I mean? It was just one-touch goal, incredible finishes. I think Aubameyang looks like he really enjoys playing for Arsenal, and that's a great thing. When you see a player wanting to be at your club, enjoying it, working with other players, creating relationships, I think it's great, and I think he's a wonderful player. We spoke briefly last week about him playing in that right-hand channel a little bit more, and he's starting to score goals in that channel and get on the end of things on that right-hand side. But he can score from the left. He can score down the middle. He's a constant movement, and I just think we're very fortunate to have two players like this. And I guarantee you now, there'll be analysts at all the other Premier League clubs looking at what they do. And good luck to them, because I can't tell what they do. They just seem to pop up in different places with different moves, different finishes, left foot, right foot, outside the box, inside the box, one touch, shooting from incredible angles. I mean, good luck trying to stop these two, because they're very hard to read, very hard to stop. And when they got that instinctive partnership, and Aubameyang's a big part of that, I can't wait to see more of it. And the only thing that's going to stop them is, touch wood, injury. which I don't want to see. I don't want to see. And as Tim alluded to, it's made it all fun again, right? And I think my son asked me, when can we go to an away game, Dad? I mean, he has never asked me that before, right? So now I've got to speak to people to get tickets, right, to go to an away game because he wants to be there. It looks good. It looks fun.
Don't take him to Spurs' new ground because it might fall down on him.
Yeah, it looks like fun. I think that was a bit behind the chant. And I sort of tweeted out today, this was probably the game where the belief went up. I think we'd seen this run. We'd spoken ourselves down, tried to dampen our expectations, say, is this really real? But this game came along after an away day trip in Europa League, and I was a bit nervous about it, if I'm honest. And
really?
But I was. I said it last week. I was thinking this was not going to be a win. Could be tough. It could break the run.
I predicted 10-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah, you always do. Fantastic. And I think, and I just think maybe the belief went through the roof and the fun went through the roof. And I think maybe that's where that chant came from. I think now it's going to be quite interesting. We're going to get a lot of positive press until the internationals start. There's going to be lots of podcasts coming out today, tomorrow. And it's going to be interesting to see how we absorb that as fans and as a club. Hopefully we keep our feet on the ground. There's not a lot of messages coming out of Emery because he can't really speak a lot of messages. And I think that's good because it keeps everything nice and tight. And hopefully we can stay under the radar a little bit longer and continue to build the momentum.
Well, before we finish, we will talk about what the table is looking like, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and I definitely think that we are entitled to celebrate it. You know what's interesting about Aubameyang to me is that Alexis Sanchez scored some really hard goals, and he made them look really hard. There was something about his energy and his grit and his determination that everything did look like a struggle, like it was hard. And when he scored a great goal, it looked like a struggle. Aubameyang's the opposite. I know we've seen him miss a couple tap-ins, unfortunately, against Chelsea that could have us top of the table. No big deal. But when he scores, it always looks effortless. Even the hard goals look easy. It reminds me of Thierry Henry in that way. Just their smoothness and their gait and their stride and the way they hit a ball.
His mechanics are perfect, right? The way he runs. He's my wife's an athletic coach, and the way he runs is perfection on the pitch.
I assume she's got you running that way as well, then?
Absolutely. If you see me, and Tim has, he knows that I look very similar to Aubameyang. Did I, Tim?
Yeah. Does your Lamborghini look similar to Aubameyang as well? Okay, so before we get to the end here, let's talk just a moment about the defense. I mean, it wasn't the hardest game for us, and sometimes games like this, look, there is a risk. You look at a team that has conceded the most goals in the league going into this game, the team that had conceded the most expected goals in the league going into this game, the most chances going into this game, and there was always the possibility that we could turn them over, and that we did is a credit to us, but there's always the risk of overreading into it. I'm sure you're going to see think pieces, Tim, on this proves Ozil shouldn't be in the team and that Ramsey should get a contract. When 48 hours ago it was Ramsey's expendable and Ozil should be the 10. I think the same can be true defensively. Mustafi is more likely the guy we've seen for 60 games than he is for one, but when he does something credit-worthy, we should give him credit. This was a good performance for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a really good performance from him. Actually, I thought, and not least, the actual goal we conceded had little to nothing to do with him. And Fulham were when you look at the kind of shot figures, it's actually shockingly high. You think, when did Fulham have all those shots? But when you look back, they're all completely speculative. Lots of them are blocked as well. And I thought Mustafi, we said this before, haven't we? He can do these 2 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 games, and this was very much an 8 out of 10 one. Even if his passing wasn't quite there, maybe. And actually, that's an element of his game I think he's kind of lost in the last few months. I thought that was something he used to be really good at, even in lieu of some of his defensive attributes. But yeah, I thought, and I don't know whether it was, playing alongside Holding, he felt like a responsibility, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it's just one of those days where he played quite well. But there was that brilliant block on Mitrovic in the first half as well. I saw it very clearly. It was right in front of me where there was a pullback to Mitrovic, and it looked like he was just, swinging his leg back, and Mustafi came in with a sliding tackle. And again, sometimes he comes in with those sliding tackles and he doesn't quite get them right. But that was a microcosm of his day, really. It was one of those days where he went sliding on his arse for 10 yards, but it was actually very well timed and a crucial contribution.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly fine to just say, good game, Mustafi, string 10 more of them together and we'll talk, but you can't start a run of good form without a start, and this is a start. I think Holding played well too, and if the manager has any tough calls coming up, and he's got a lot of them all over the pitch, which mostly is a good thing because of quality performances, I think one of the hardest for him is going to be who Socrates comes in for. I mean, it'll probably be Socrates and Mustafi, but I don't think Holding has done anything to warrant being dropped. The goal, arguably, he's involved in, but I think he's put in a position where if he steps up, he probably doesn't keep the offside line. He tries to drop, and he can't drop fast enough. It's just a really impossible situation. So, Clive, I want to get back to your favorite topic just really quickly, Aaron Ramsey. And look, I mean, you can't overlook the involvement he had in our goal of the season and what might wind up being the goal of the season, full stop. But this is a game where he got to do a little more of what he likes to do, covering a lot of ground, getting on the ball, bringing the ball through the thirds, and getting on the end of moves. It is looking more and more like whatever Emery wants to do with this team, it is going to be hard to have Ramsey and Ozil coexist in the side. Ramsey wasn't getting bumped into by the number 10 who's supposed to be playing out wide. He had the space to operate. For you, is the biggest difference in his performance here the absence of that person who wanted to occupy the same spaces?
I think he plays slightly different. He played from the outside, there was a period when the Cazorla Coquelin midfield, we had a 4-2-3-1, and he played from the right, and I thought he played exceptionally well from that position. I thought he could do what he liked, and then he would recover into that space where Bellerin was left on his own. But he's always quite good at doing more than he should on distance-wise. So if you give him 1.5 jobs, but it doesn't affect the structure of your team, then I think he can be quite effective. But he didn't like it out there, and everyone says to me he's a centre midfielder. Well, and I've always queried that. So nobody's saying now he should be playing instead of Torreira or Xhaka. No one's saying that now. So where's this been for the last 5 years? I don't get it. I've never felt he's had the style to be one of those two. His instincts are too strong. However, if you put him in a role where his instincts become a positive, then he is a huge player. I just think sometimes you have to decide as an individual how you want to develop your game. And you develop your game on the people that are around you. So you say to yourself, do I want to develop my game based on the weaknesses within this squad? Or do I want to develop my game so I'm better at what I do best? And hopefully then the squad will then adapt to me. And I think in any workplace, sometimes you have to adapt to the weaknesses that are around so you become a positive. And I felt that Ramsey, and he's not the only one, that are trying to force people to develop to him. And I would much rather him. And the reason I say this about him, because I think he has got an all-round game. If he wanted to be one of the two in centre midfield and play it like Guendouzi does or like Xhaka does, he can do that. He's got range of pass. He can defend. He can work. But his instincts to drive into other areas and then cause structural issues for the team have been prevalent for many years. So I think he has a problem. The club has a problem. How to get him into a team with structures and disciplines becoming clearer by the week. And I think maybe, despite his talent, this team is developing away from that type of player. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll settle down. Maybe we'll offer him a contract, and maybe he will adapt to the new sort of success criteria and become a success and be an Arsenal legend. I'm not sure. I don't think it's dead yet. But I think if Arsenal want to move forward and show a new face, it wouldn't kill me to see a couple of big names disappear so we can develop that new face and give this team culture over to some of the new faces that have been brought in.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. It's just the issue becomes, why here. I mean, the one thing we know about Ramsey is he's a very talented player. And, the question is, okay, so why hasn't it been happening for him this season? What is the issue? Well, to me, the issue is just that you look at what happened in this game and what has not been able to happen previously. And Tim, this is sort of the quintessential role you would dream up for Ramsey, is the way that goal was scored, which is play out from the back, bypass their midfield into a transition opportunity. Ramsey gets the ball in the center of the pitch, turns, distributes wide, and then busts his ass to get into the box to be on the end of the move. If you have those wide players, if you have Mkhitaryan, if you have Iwobi, and you have the fullbacks, busting a gut to get up the pitch. And let's remember, under Arsene Wenger, we always had those fullbacks pushed up. We always occupied those wide spaces. When he can distribute wide and run towards the box, that's when he's very dangerous. But what's weird is we haven't been playing that way. And so, if Ozil's going to come in, the irony is, look at the Watford goal that Ozil scores. Same kind of thing, right? He arrives late in the box to finish a move. You can't both be doing that. There have to be those wide players. So is the biggest takeaway from this game, like every time Iwobi or Mkhitaryan or even both of them play, we look coherent in attack. We look like we have a clear principle. I keep coming on the podcast saying, I can't see the plan. And everybody keeps getting mad at me and keeps saying nasty things to me. And then I keep saying, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remove it. But like, when we play with these wide players, it seems to work. And that's when I see a plan. Oh, okay, play out from the back, create transition, get it to the middle, let the middle distribute wide, and then everybody crashes the box for the pullbacks. And that's where Ramsey can be devastating. Is the reality simply that he's got to pick one or the other, Ozil or Ramsey, and he's got to play with these wide players, that there's no way to make this system work if he doesn't utilize those players that will stay in the half spaces, stay on the wings?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I don't think it always has to be both of Iwobi or Mkhitaryan, or I'd include Welbeck in that. By the way, I think he can play that role really, really well. Maybe not quite as much as a creator, albeit I think Welbeck can be a creator in the way he set up Lacazette's goal by creating a bit of chaos. But generally on the ball, he's not necessarily going to give you a final ball, but he can do it in a different way. But yeah, I think on at least one of those sides, we have to have that. I don't really like playing Ozil out on the right. I think it's quite interesting because I think there are quite a few players I'd play there before I'd play Ozil there. Ramsey came on the right. I've always thought that Ramsey's very good on the right. I was listening to I think it was the Set Piece Menu podcast a few weeks ago, and Rory Smith was talking about Steven Gerrard, and he said if you look at the two best seasons of Steven Gerrard's career, he didn't play central midfield in either of them. He spent one of them on the right wing, the year that Liverpool won the European Cup. He played on the right, and then when they went close to the title, when he played off Torres, basically as a second striker. And he was saying that's the interesting thing, Steven Gerrard. And then what was Steven Gerrard's England career? Oh, he can't play next to Lampard. He can't play next to Scholes. And so he's just making this point that actually he's considered this legendary figure, but he wasn't a central midfielder, or he shouldn't have been. And I think it's possibly kind of similar with Ramsey. I really like Ramsey coming off the right. I liked what Clive suggested in the last pod, Aubameyang on the right. Concentrate all your build up on the left if you want, a bit like the Invincibles used to do it. They used to let Pires, Cole and Omri and Vieira would go over there and they'd all have good fun, and then Lundberg would just kind of
pop up and score.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stay on the back post, or he a bit like Walcott as well. He didn't want any involvement in that, and so I think Aubameyang on the right is an attractive option. Ramsey on the right, Iwobi on the right, Mkhitaryan on the right. And Ozil's really the odd one out here. I think even possibly Lacazette would probably work on the right. So in short, the answer to your question is yes. And I've been saying it basically since pre-season that one of those guys has to play to balance this front line. Basically, anyone but Ozil on the right. And if you're going to play Ozil, we all know what his skill set is. We all know what he does, and for me, you either play him as a number 10, or you just don't really bother.
Yeah, and I just don't see. The problem is if you don't play him there, Tim, and you play him on the right, and he wants to drift central. Not only does Ramsey start to lose an understanding of what his role is supposed to be, but if he does collect the ball in the center of the pitch and he looks out wide, and Aubameyang's drifted central, and Ozil's standing 3 yards from him. Like, he just does not have those options he wants to give it to, those wide spaces so that he can make the runs into the box and arrive, and that doesn't work for him. So one or the other, sure. The thing about a win like this is it can cause you to overanalyze this performance in the absence of the others, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the first game in ages where we've started with these wide players has produced our best performance. So, there's got to be something to that, and it'll be very interesting to see what Emery does coming back from the international break. I think, we haven't talked at all about Iwobi, really. I think we've praised him in previous episodes. Clive, I want to start to wrap up, but I think it's at least worth a mention that this is a player who someone on the podcast said, who was it? It's going to escape me. Oh, no, it was me. Predicted to be the breakout player of the season.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just escaped me for a minute, but I knew it would come back to me. He really is thriving with two things. One, he's keeping his head up. If he gets it wrong, he goes again. He's not beating himself up, but he's staying closer to the box, and he's just looks so much more confident in himself. How happy are you to see that the progress that seemed to have stalled going into the season has picked right back up?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. There was a picture in the paper the other day about Iwobi when he first came into the squad and Iwobi now. There's two pictures side by side. Physically, he looked different. He had massive pair of shorts on. He was heavier. He had his socks rolled down, and you see him now. He looks tip top, and his movement looks really good. In the midweek game, I think he made like one dribble, must have been like 60 yards, and then he sprinted back straight after it. I mean, he's sprinting back into his box. One of the big criticisms for me was his fitness. He's had this power, but 60 minutes, he was gassed. He was done. And now, I mean, I know he came off in this game, but he came off because he played so well, and it was time for a rotation to bring on new energy. It wasn't because of anything bad he'd done. I think that role in this 4-2-2-2, that role as a left higher up centre mid that can play in and out is perfect for him, because he can play inside, and if he's outside, he can play outside, and he can play in a half space, and he can carry, and so can Mkhitaryan. So that square you get, it has all the attributes that we need to fix problems. When you pick a team, you always think about the problems you're trying to fix. And if you've got rounded players, you can fix more problems live and direct on the pitch during the game. If you have players with similar weaknesses that don't want to be in certain holes, you can cause problems that you can't fix. And what I like, when we're under a bit of pressure, Iwobi can then get back in and defend, and then if we need him to hit chalk on boots, he can do that. If we need him to come inside to create room for Monreal to overlap, he can do that. He plays the overlap in, he doesn't mess about. He's not coming inside and shooting to the corner flag. He's playing an overlap in, and we're scoring goals off of it. It's been a transformation of simplicity. Do the fundamentals right. Get your arse in shape. Get fit. Make sure you do the right things on the pitch as much as you can, and then you develop a trust and a confidence, because you know you've got belief in the manager, and then everything starts to flow. But it starts from the basics. Get fit, work hard for the team, and from that base, you develop a trust, and he's doing that fantastically well.
Yeah, long may it continue. I think he's becoming a really important player for us, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the development of a young player stalling, but if you had to look in early returns, the player most impacted by the new coach, it's got to be Iwobi, at least for me. I thought Leno did well with his distribution, so that's good. We'll keep an eye on what happens after the international break, whether Czech gets his role back or not. But, Tim, I have to give you the question of the podcast now. You can do it a simple yes or no, or you can dive deep, but we should get you on the record. 2 points off the top. Is it back on?
No.
It's not back on, is it?
No.
Top four may well be on, though, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't even understand why people are surprised by that. It's really weird how quickly things change, isn't it? Because the joke was always about, Arsenal top four, blah, 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 and it was really taken for granted. And then, 2 seasons ago, we missed it by a point. So it's not like we were miles outside. And last season, a bit of a write-off, and we all know. And I think we all realise as well that was a fairly exceptional circumstance. We don't have this terrible squad. We have an unbalanced squad, but it's not. You look at the players on paper, at the likes of Tottenham and
Oh,
Chelsea.
it's not the poorer relation to any of those teams, in my opinion.
No, it's just mad how quickly people absolutely switch, even game to game, But so for me, the top four was always on the table, absolutely always. I don't get why people didn't think it was. But I mean, the title, no. And actually, there's quite an interesting article on StatsBomb today that Ted Knutson put up about our conversion rate and stuff like that, and basically saying, the underlying metrics are still saying there's possibly a bit of a sting in the tail here. But that's I think that's fine. I think you recognise when you win 5-1 that's not gonna happen all the time. And we know that there have been some performances in this run that haven't been convincing, and things are being tweaked and whatnot. So I mean, no, if you start thinking about the title, yes, you're going to be absolutely setting yourself up for a fall. But I can't understand why people are surprised that the top four's on. That just seems very strange to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm going to say something that's going to alarm people. I think though, at first, I joked, so I said on Twitter, I said, 2 points off the top, whispers, is it back on, or it's back on? And obviously, I didn't mean it. I still think City and probably Liverpool are streets ahead of us. But then I thought about it for a minute. What's wrong with being a fan of Arsenal? I mean, Arsenal, we're not talking about Leicester City here. We're Arsenal Football Club with all the hundreds of millions of pounds of attacking talent we have, and thinking, maybe, just maybe, we can get the title. I mean, Tim, is it that wrong to let yourself dream about that? I mean, what's wrong with getting a little carried away? You're 2 points off the top. It's October. I mean, we've seen crazy shit happen. This team does have some extraordinary players who are playing extraordinarily in Lacazette, for example. Is it that silly to think maybe this all clicks and some things go our way and something magical happens, or is that just a total waste of your energies? I know some people say, well, that's not fair. If you set those expectations, then you'll see Emery as a failure if he doesn't win the title. I'm not saying it'd be a failure if we don't, but what's wrong with going back to thinking the title is a reasonable expectation for Arsenal?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. I suppose it depends on the spirit that you take it in. You're right. If you set that as if you set that as an expectation, then yes, you'll probably be disappointed, and there's a chance that it could cause you to be unfair in your assessment. Not that really even has any consequence, to be honest. We're all just talking pointlessly into the void, which, by the way, might be a good tagline for this podcast. Think
talking
about it.
Pointlessly into the void. After a 5-1 win, I'd already scribbled down playing what we see from Clive. I like Clive's because they sound really insightful, but I'm not totally sure what it means. Maybe we can get Clive to come back and explain what that means, so that they're all fitting, because someone could read that and be like, oh, I want to know what that means. And then after the pod, they can go, I still don't know what that means. But no, you're right. Look, we are, at the end of the day, I mean, who does it hurt to say we could win a title? But I mean,
yeah.
Clive, it is part of the fun, right? I mean, look, there was a few seasons back. I don't even think it was the Leicester season. It might have been before that, where we were joint top around Christmas. And I was thinking this could happen. And then we collapsed in January. And I think we're lucky to finish fourth. But it wasn't that long ago that thinking about Arsenal winning a title wasn't written off as an absurdity. And I realize part of the reason it is right now is because you have a team in particular in Pep's City and maybe in Liverpool that looks so far ahead. But are you willing to let yourself dream a little yet, or not at all?
Well, for one, I don't think Liverpool are so far ahead anymore. I think they got some issues in their team, and they didn't expect. I think, again, from reading articles and looking at numbers, City's numbers are very, very good. And I think they've got room to grow. They've got more cover up front. They're getting back their midfielder. I think they've got room to develop. They're still relying on Fernandinho a little bit too much. But Laporte has stepped on. Company doesn't seem to be getting injured. The fullbacks are strong. They've got Mendy back in. I'm thinking, okay, they could really go and really separate. But I don't think Liverpool are that far away. We're going to get our chance very shortly to see what's happening there. I think, for me, Elliot, I think we're going to improve. And the reason why I think that is the manager we've got. Just listen to what's been said about him. He's somebody that analyzes and learns lessons. Lots of video analysis, lots of data analysis. That means he's seeing things, and every single game that's played, he is learning more and more. And I think we can all agree we're starting to see the mistakes and the juvenile things that we did in some games with high lines and playing out from the back too much and all those things. What we're seeing here, they're suddenly stopped. The decision making is better. Our line is better. We've discovered another centre half in Holding. And now we're debating whether he's in the first 11. I mean, that's come out of nowhere. We discovered a 19-year-old French guy in centre midfield that's potentially going to be named in the French squad very shortly. That's come out of nowhere. We've discovered Iwobi. We're rediscovering Welbeck. We're discovering a partnership up front. I mean, we are improving. We are improving. And maybe the question should be, by how far can we improve? And if we do add our skipper back into the mix, and potentially we have somebody that can track and cover as well as anybody can, then we start to think, well, actually, we might stop giving up chances, and then those stats bomb numbers might look a little bit different. So I'm hopeful that we can improve. Where that'll take us, I don't think it could take us to the title, but I'd love to see us really firmly in that top 4 so we can re-establish ourselves at the top table.
Yeah, and it will be interesting when that Liverpool game comes up, because we started the season against two teams that are now joint top. And I don't think we were a million miles away from Chelsea, quite clearly. We just waved the white flag in the second half. City, we looked a million miles away from. But it'll be interesting to measure the performance against Liverpool and compare it against those beginning of the season performances. And there's 2 more left. I mean, Clive, you coined it, Project 24. It's down to Project 6 now. Who would have guessed, right? I mean,
I wish I put a bet on. I tell you that. If I put a bet on those 8 games, I'll be pretty scared now. Big numbers coming my way, but yeah, those 8 games were stretched. They were stretched out in front of us, and to me, it was all about how many points could we get out of the 24. And I thought we could get a high number. We may get all 24. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, had you put a bet on it, we would have lost the last game on a last-minute penalty,
exactly,
or drawn it or something. So no, you're perfect just the way you are. Tim, since your last contribution was shouting into the void, I'm just going to give you a chance to come back and say something that you can end on, so you don't have to go out like that. It's a 5-1 win. It's 6 points left in Project 24. I mean, just put into context for us the magnitude of this run in your mind, and what it could mean if we go all the way with it.
Yeah, I completely and utterly did not expect us to win 6 in a row in the league and 9 in a row in all competitions. Maybe I expected to beat Brentford and win the Europa League games, but even though on paper each game that comes you kind of think, yeah, we should win that, generally over the course of 6 or 7 games you trip up somewhere. I still think, even within the parameters of Project 24, I think the most difficult tests are to come. I think Leicester are potentially a decent team that could give us some problems. They're very difficult to read, Leicester. But we've not had many easy games against them in recent years. And with a striker like Vardy, I do worry a little bit about some of the gaps we leave and some of the chances we give up. Yeah,
he's still in cracking form thanks to all the performance-enhancing healthy lifestyle and clean living. Sorry, is what I meant, yeah.
And so I think that's going to be a really tough one. I think Palace away will be as well. Wilfried Zaha might be the best player outside the top 6 at the moment. So, I don't know, maybe I'm more wary about 2 individuals than 2 teams per se. But I'm massively enthused by it. And it gives us, I know you say this a lot, in terms of finishing in the top 4, if you just keep beating the chaff, you give yourself a great chance.
I mean, that's how we finished top 4 for many of our top 4 finishes over the last several seasons. I mean, we were bottom of the top 6 league or top 5 league or whatever it was, and then we just beat up on everybody else. And I think we could do it. I mean, we'll have to see. You know what was really important though, guys, and this is what we can leave on, is just simply that a new coach has to win over the trust of the fans, but he also has to win over the trust of his players. They need to see results to know that his methodology, his ideas are working. And the more those ideas produce results and goals and wins, the more they trust him, and the more they're willing to run that extra yard for him, go that extra mile for him. You see it. You see what's happening at United, which, by the way, was the best result of the weekend. United coming back to beat Newcastle so that Jose keeps his job, because it might have been. But I think after those 2 early losses, what a harsh way to start your Arsenal career. You're trying to instill a new way of thinking about the game, approaching the game, training, playing. You come away with 2 losses because of the cruelty of the fixture list, the computer that spits that out. And I say computer, and what I mean are the people in a room who write it down. But he's got these wins now under his belt, which means he has the trust of his players. He has the trust of the fans who are singing, "We've got our Arsenal back." And now he can start to tinker a little and really put out the players he wants and take the strategy he wants because he has their trust. And so this run has been very, very important to make it feel like Unai Emery's team. And I think that will pay dividends too, because now that he has their trust, he can really do the hard work when it needs to be done. So hopefully that just begets more winning, and we will find out. So here's what we'll do. We're going to be done, obviously, with post-match podcasts. We're not going to be done with podcasting altogether. We're going to do, over the international break, a mailbag podcast, and we'll point you towards where to get in touch for that. We are going to open up a new shirt giveaway competition. So right after you listen to this podcast, you can go to our website, and you can find a shirt giveaway entry form. It won't be live yet because I haven't thought of the question yet. But as soon as I think of the question, then it'll be live. You know what? Hell, here's the question. What's my favorite number? It's 7. The answer to the question is 7. Just type 7. Okay, I fucking just type 7 and that'll be it. So yeah, you can go to the Arsenal Vision podcast website and enter the shirt giveaway. We'll announce a winner by the end of the month. So I'll find a fixture that's close to the end of the month and we'll announce the winner there. We will be doing an In the Spotlight Mesut Ozil on Patreon this week. We'll be doing a mailbag episode, so lots of good stuff to come. Again, the number is 7. Tim's on Twitter at Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
7.
Clive's on Twitter at Clive BAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
The title of the podcast is Playing What We See. What does it mean? Nobody knows, but it's the title of the podcast. The number is 7. My name's Elliot Smith, Blockman on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We will talk to you soon. Be sure to join us on the Patreon side, please, if you would be so kind. If not, no big deal. For In the Spotlight Mesut Ozil later this week. And we will talk to you after
Leicester.
Arsenal 10, Leicester 0. Cheers. Thanks.